We will be back in just a few minutes.
Mr. Congressman McGovern, everyone. Big round of applause.
Well, thank you very much, and I feel very honored to be here today, and I want to thank all of you for coming together for peace and for justice and for trying to make this community and this world a better place. You know, did you ever have one of those mornings when you wake up and you read the newspaper and you start to wonder whether or not the whole world has gone mad? You pick up the paper and you read about war, you read about hunger and violence and crime and so many things that are just really repulsive. And that's just on the front page of the newspaper. And I have those days myself. And you get this feeling that you just want to get away and move off to some far-off, distant place and not have to deal with anything. But then I get impatient with myself, and I get angry at myself because I realize that this is my city too, that this is my state, and this is my country, and I'm part of this world. And I want it to be better, as all of you do. And in wanting to make it better, we all have a role to play, we all have a responsibility to try to make this place a more tolerant, a more just country. You know, Washington is a place that is, well, let's put it this way. I'd rather be here than in Washington right now. But in my job, I get to meet all kinds of people. I've been to all kinds of places in this world. And I've seen the best of humanity, and I've seen where there's no humanity. I've seen right here in this city, I've seen people who have changed things, who have helped other people, who have volunteered, who have been part of the effort to combat hunger, to combat violence, to make our neighborhoods safer. I've seen teachers who have given young kids, who by all accounts should have no hope, all the hope in the world, have taught them to aim high, have made a difference in their lives. I've seen leaders in our religious community go out and literally inspire people. I've also seen the worst in this community. I've talked to mothers who have lost children to violence. I've talked to children who have been abused. I've talked to single mothers who are trying to make it on their own after having been tormented by a violent husband. I've been around the world. I've seen the best and I've seen the worst. I've seen in El Salvador, I've seen missionaries so selflessly giving themselves to stand with the poor, to demand that people who have no voice have a voice and have a better life. I've also seen the worst. I've seen people tortured. I've seen war up close and personal. And I come away from all of that believing that, again, all of us can play a role in bringing out the best in humanity and trying to discourage and to alienate the worst. You know, the thing that gets me frustrated sometimes is there are a lot of people who just think that this is part of the natural order. There are bad things that happen. We just got to deal with it. I'm reminded of that old saying that for evil to triumph, all that it takes is for good men and women to do nothing and to be silent. There are too many people who are silent. There are too many people who are doing nothing. There are too many things in this world that are wrong as a result of that indifference. We have control. We can take things back. We can make things better. We can create a more peaceful world. You know, in Washington, sometimes our politicians don't always appeal to the better angels of our nature, if I can steal from Abraham Lincoln. Sometimes the things that we talk about, the things that we discuss, are very divisive. You know, tear people apart, create a climate of intolerance and a climate of fear. You know, this week in Washington, when I go back, the big issue on the agenda for Congress this week is going to be the issue of gay marriage, whether we should have a constitutional amendment to ban it. Now, I know it's a controversial matter, even within my own church, but the bottom line is it's not being brought up because it's a national crisis. It's being brought up because there are some people who think that there can be political gain in division. The problem with that is that when you constantly try to divide people, what ends up happening is you create a climate where intolerance becomes acceptable, where not only intolerance becomes acceptable, but then that leads to violence. You know, quite frankly, the United States Congress should be more concerned about hate crimes and violence against people than it should be about whether two people want to get married, spend the rest of their life together. Cardinal McCarrick of the Washington, D.C. area recently retired, and I went to his going-away breakfast, and he actually said something. He actually referred to a recent encyclical by Pope Benedict, who quoted St. Augustine, who said, "A state which is not governed according to justice would be just a bunch of thieves." And I thought that was something that every politician in Washington should put up on their walls. Bottom line is that whether you're in politics, or whether you're in business, or whether you're a parent, or whether you're a student, you know, or whatever you may be, we all need to be guided by justice. We all need to be guided by a principle of peace. And it will not happen. It will not happen unless people like those of you who are gathered here today demand that it happen. Peace just doesn't happen, unfortunately. You have to work for it.
Or get arrested, right, Jim?
Or get arrested, right, absolutely. And that sometimes it does mean getting arrested. In the face of in the face of a genocide that we see going on in Sudan, I mean, how can the world be silent? How could any of us be silent? Yeah, we're not there, but how can we be silent in the face of that kind of atrocity? I mean, how can we be silent as we see our cities become more and more dangerous? How can we be silent in the face of so much that goes on? And I think that the way you change things is you stop being silent and you come together. There's a lot more that unifies us than divides us. Let me end on this one thing. I used to think, when I was younger, that as I got older, everything would become more clear to me, that I would understand the world better. I used to think that. Now maybe I'm a slow learner, but bottom line is, the older I get, sometimes the more confused I get, and the more I can't understand certain situations. I do not understand why there are so many people in this community, why there are so many people in this country, why there are so many people around the world who choose to define themselves and choose to justify their very existence by their differences. We're at war. There are people at war over differences over religion, over ancestry, over ideology. There are people who commit violent acts against other people because they're different. There are people who attack other people because of their religions. It makes no sense to me, because in the final analysis, there's a heck of a lot more that brings us together. You know, there's a heck of a lot more that kind of unifies us. And we need to create that spirit here at home, all throughout this country, all throughout our country. And by example, I think we can be an example to the rest of the world. I mean, that's what I hope. And so I want to thank you for doing this here today. I'm not as good as the music you just heard, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your commitment to trying to take back our community and our world for the things that I think all of us know we should be about. So thank you very much for having me here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it was a pleasure hearing those words. You know, watching C-SPAN and reading the newspapers, sometimes you forget there actually are intelligent people in Congress.
Amen to that.
I don't say that lightly. What a